On First at 9 this Sunday, the 18th of May 2025. 16 years of peace. Sri Lanka celebrates over 1.5 decades of peace after the brutal civil conflict. Sri Lanka must forever remain a free and sovereign nation under one flag, declares the wartime president. Unhealed wounds. Commemorative events held to honor those who lost their lives in Mullawaikal during the war's final stages. Tensions flared when objections were raised against a remembrance ceremony at Vellavatta beach. Salty situation. Producers say panic buying in recent days is the main reason behind the country's salt shortage. Targeted campaign. Sri Lanka to intensify marketing campaigns to attract more visitors during the off-season. Targeted advertising efforts already underway, particularly aimed at drawing tourists from China, reveals Deputy Minister.
Cinec Campus Open Day. May masa 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9, brought to you by the nation's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now today marks 16 years since the end of Sri Lanka's 3-decade-long civil war, which concluded with the defeat of the LTTE, a terrorist group that waged a war of separatism in the country for over 3 decades. In the course of this prolonged struggle, thousands of brave soldiers laid down their lives to ensure that Sri Lankans could once again live without fear or violence. This is a look back on that hard-won victory over terrorism and a solemn tribute to the heroes who liberated the island from the grip of extremism. When Jaffna Mayor Alfred Durayappa was murdered on the 27th of July 1975, none foresaw that it would ignite a bloody conflict that would grip Sri Lanka for the next 30 years. The murder was orchestrated by Velupillai Prabhakaran, the leader of the terrorist group Liberation Tamil Tigers of Elam, who was seeking to establish a separatist state within Sri Lanka in the name of Tamil Elam. In pursuit of that goal, he launched appalling acts of violence targeting not only civilians and vital infrastructure such as the Central Bank and Katunayaka Airport, but also sacred Buddhist sites such as the Sri Mahabodhi in Anuradhapura and the Temple of the Tooth Relic in Kandy. In 2001, the UNP-led government opted to enter into a ceasefire agreement with the LTTE. However, during this period, the LTTE violated the terms of the ceasefire and strengthened their military capabilities instead of honouring peace. When Mahinda Rajapaksa assumed the presidency in 2005, he initially offered the hand of peace to the LTTE, but the group chose to escalate the conflict, carrying out failed assassination attempts on then Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Army Commander Lieutenant General Sarath Fonseca. In July 2006, the LTTE once again revealed its ruthlessness by shutting off the Mavilaru sluice gates, cutting off the water supply to farmers in the east. This act triggered the Fourth Elam War. President Mahinda Rajapaksa, as Commander-in-Chief, then issued the directive to eliminate terrorism entirely. Accordingly, by 2007, Sri Lankan security forces liberated the eastern province from the clutches of the terrorists. Despite domestic opposition, interference by non-governmental organizations and international pressure, then President Mahinda Rajapaksa instructed the armed forces to move forward and liberate the northern province. 8 separate army divisions advanced along 8 different routes with one goal in mind: to trap the terrorists. Though progress was slowed due to the LTTE's tactic of using innocent Tamil civilians as human shields, the military pressed on. In what became the largest hostage rescue mission in the world, the Sri Lankan military successfully brought the conflict to an end. On the 18th of May 2009, LTTE leader Prabhakaran was killed near the Nandikadal lagoon, bringing the decades-long war to a decisive end. That historic victory was made possible through the political leadership of then-President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the strategic leadership of military commanders, the unwavering dedication of the armed forces, and the resilience of the Sri Lankan people. The sacrifices and courage of those who led the nation out of a 30-year nightmare will always be remembered with gratitude and respect. Now issuing a statement on the 16th anniversary of Sri Lanka's victory over the LTTE, Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the commander-in-chief during the final stages of the conflict, expressed his hope that Sri Lanka forever remains a free and sovereign nation under one flag. The former president also strongly affirmed that the Sri Lankan military never committed any war crimes or human rights violations during the humanitarian operation, adding that even now he continues to battle politically on behalf of those troops. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the commander-in-chief when Sri Lanka defeated the LTTE's 30-year reign of terror, issued a statement today in line with the 16th anniversary of the war victory. In the statement, former President Rajapaksa affirmed that at a time when even the world's superpowers were gripped by fear of terrorism, he made the decision to stand up to the LTTE, emphasizing that it was a humanitarian mission. The former president highlights that the fight was not a war against Tamil people and added that the objective was to protect the lives of all civilians in the country. He affirmed that Sri Lankan soldiers fought with a burden on their shoulders to uphold human rights and hailed the Sri Lankan armed forces as the world's most humane military, adding that even after 16 years he continues to battle politically on behalf of those troops. The former president also rejected the accusations made by the mayor of Brampton during the recent unveiling of a Tamil genocide memorial that the Sri Lankan government killed thousands of Tamils, drawing attention to the fact that at a time when Tamil civilians were being used as human shields and human bombs by the LTTE, Sri Lanka's tri-forces launched a campaign that saved them. Rajapaksa strongly affirmed that the Sri Lankan military never committed any war crimes or human rights violations. He also highlighted that the LTTE, which the Sri Lankan military defeated, was officially designated by the FBI in 2008 as the world's most dangerous terrorist organization. Additionally, the former president expressed his hope that Sri Lanka forever remains a free and sovereign nation under one lion flag. Concluding the statement, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa expressed gratitude to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Police and Civil Defence Force personnel who sacrificed their lives in defence of the country, expressing his belief that a soldier in uniform, the pride of our motherland, never truly dies. Sri Lanka is set to commemorate the island's deceased war heroes who sacrificed their lives to free the country from the grips of terrorism with the National War Heroes Day celebration tomorrow at the National War Memorial in Battaramulla. Chairman of the Ranaviru Seva Authority, Brigadier Senarath Kohana, confirmed that President Anura Dissanayake will be present at the event in his capacity as the Commander-in-Chief. The annual national ceremony will be held from 4 to 6 p.m. tomorrow at the National War Heroes Cenotaph in Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte to commemorate the nearly 27,000 war heroes who laid down their lives in defence of their motherland. Deputy Minister of Defence Major General Aruna Jayasekara, as well as Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, Admiral of the Fleet, former Navy Commander Wasantha Karannagoda, and Marshal of the Air Force Roshan Gunatilaka, who led the tri-forces in the final phase of the war, are also expected to attend the event.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Now, as the country gathered to celebrate the 16th anniversary of the end of the 3-decade-long civil war, several events were held to commemorate the soldiers who made the greatest contribution to restoring sovereignty and unity in Sri Lanka. A religious event commemorating Sri Lanka's war heroes took place at the Bellanvilla Raja Mahavihara this afternoon. Leader of the Sarvajana Balaya parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira also attended the event.
It was on a day like today when a nation was created to give the opportunity for people of every ethnicity to live peacefully by the collective effort and sacrifice of the tri-forces, police and the civil defences. While we wish to never witness a catastrophe like this again, if there's an individual who works with the intention of initiating another war, we must unite and work as a force against that effort.
Meanwhile, another ceremony to commemorate war heroes named Yugandhara was held under the patronage of leader of the National Freedom Front, Vimal Weerawancha.
What is the trajectory of this nation which was saved by the war heroes? The government has taken steps to minimize the privileges of defense personnel by levelling allegations against selected soldiers and making them undergo a special court process. The whole military mechanism can be destroyed. Even though 24,000 war heroes laid down their lives, we all still have a responsibility that we cannot neglect. No matter what form enemy influences may take, we all have the responsibility to make political interventions to eliminate those influences that could harm the unitary state that was empowered by the sacrifices of our war heroes.
Meanwhile, another religious event to commemorate the nation's war heroes took place today at the Hunupitiya Gangaramaya temple with the participation of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and SLPP parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa. In the meantime, another religious event to commemorate the nation's war heroes was held today at the Tissa Maharama Rajamaha Vihara.
The government is planning to implement a new constitution which includes two critical aspects. One is that the country should be atheist and the other advocates for federalism. Therefore, regardless of the majority they have secured, we must clearly inform the government that we will not allow them to fulfill these goals, which could not be achieved through a war, through a constitution. When the incumbent president visits other countries, he attends events commemorating war heroes and visits war hero memorial. Our country's war heroes do not belong to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. They belong to this nation which was united by them. The president should at least take a minute to commemorate the war heroes who laid the foundation for them to secure the public mandate of the northern province.
Meanwhile, another commemorative event was held at the National War Memorial in Battaramulla this afternoon under the patronage of former parliamentarian Udaya Mampila.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා රටේ රාජ්‍ය නායකයා විතරක් නෙවෙයි සේනාධි නායකයා මේ තැනට හෙට දිනේ නොපෙමිණෙන ජනාධිපතිතුමා තීරණය කළා තිබුණේ අපි සමාජ මාධ්‍ය හරහා ඉල්ල කර පීඩනය නිසා ජනාධිපතිතුමා හෙට එනවලු.
A religious ceremony commemorating war heroes was also held near the Mavillaru Reservoir in Serunuwara with the participation of Buddhist clergy and the public. Meanwhile, a number of commemorative programs were held in remembrance of the civilians who lost their lives at Mullivaikal during the final stages of the war. A tense situation arose when a group of people objected to such an event at Vallavatta beach. An event was held today in remembrance of those who lost their lives in Mullivaikal during the final stages of the war. A sign saying Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day was displayed at the event. Meanwhile, another commemoration ceremony was held at the University of Jaffna in front of the monument remembering the Tamil civilians who lost their lives in Mullivaikal. The ceremony was attended by the university's staff including lecturers as well as undergraduates.
Mullivaikal இனப்படுகொலை மேற்கொள்ளப்பட்ட அந்த மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு பேரவலத்தை நாங்கள் இன்றைக்கு நினைவு கூர்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். இந்த முள்ளிவாய்க்கால் என்பது ஒரு குறியீடு, ஒரு நியாயமான ஒரு இனம்.
In the meantime, a group of civil society representatives held another commemorative event at Vallavatta beach today in remembrance of the civilians who were killed in Mullivaikal during the final stages of the war. Former parliamentarian M.A. Sumantiran also participated in the event.
යුද්ධ අවසානයේදී මැරිච්ච සිවිල් ජනතාව විශේෂයෙන්ම තමිල් ජනතාව විශාල වශයෙන් මැරුණා. ඒ නිසා අපි මේ අයුක්තියට මේ මුල්ලිවායිකාල් අනුස්මරණය අපි මෙතන කරනවා.
However, a separate group of civil society representatives who arrived at the commemoration site expressed objection towards the event. Heavy police protection was provided to the site, including officers from the police riot control unit. Despite submitting a proposal yesterday to increase electricity tariffs by 18.3% for the second half of 2025, the Ceylon Electricity Board highlights that the new electricity tariffs will remain lower than they were at the beginning of the year. In a statement by CEB spokesperson Dhammika Wimalaratne, the state power supply notes that electricity tariffs remained unchanged despite significant increases in the cost of power generation, transmission and distribution from 2014 to 2022. The statement also mentioned that fuel prices, coal, spare parts and maintenance costs continue to increase steadily. Since the CEB continued supplying electricity without increasing prices while absorbing the full impact of these rising costs, it has led to large-scale borrowing and delayed payments to suppliers, resulting in legacy debt. The statement further highlighted that the new tariff proposal is intended to gradually recover essential costs, manage the legacy debt and ensure timely payments to suppliers. Chairman of the Lanka Salt Company, D. Nandanatilaka, claims that panic buying in recent days prompted the current salt shortage in the country. He adds that domestic salt production is expected to return to normal by June and further notes that salt shipments from India are expected to arrive by the end of the month. Over the past few weeks, a salt shortage was observed in the market primarily due to disruptions in local production caused by unfavorable weather. To bridge the persisting shortage, the cabinet approved the importation of salt into the country until the 10th of June. The recent decision to open up the local market to salt imports follows a similar decision taken on the 15th of December last year, when the local market was first opened up for salt imports after 15 long years. The salt shipment expected this month will be the second import Sri Lanka will receive in a 6-month period. Commenting on the situation, Chairman of Lanka Salt Limited, D. Nandanatilaka, claims that although there is sufficient salt available in the market, panic buying is a key factor contributing to the shortage.
We had stock in hand and have been releasing it to the markets. On average, 2 400-gram packets of salt are sufficient for a household for a month, but due to panic buying, people have stocked up for around 6 months. This is the major reason behind the perceived shortage. Everything has been arranged to import salt from India. Lanka Salt Limited will import 10,000 metric tons, expected to arrive next week, while National Salt Limited will import 20,000 metric tons, which is expected to arrive by the end of the month. This will be sufficient to meet the country's salt demand. In 2024, we had set a production target of 125 metric tons in Hambantota, but we managed to produce only 1/3 of that, corresponding to around 40,000 metric tons. The shortfall is the main cause of this year's shortage. Since May 1st, the weather has improved. From June 20th, we expect to resume production at full capacity. We called for tenders and each supplier submitted samples along with their bids. These samples will be tested in our laboratories and we will only select suppliers that meet our quality standards. We received 5 tenders, each with different price points. The supplier will be selected based on the lab test results and compliance with our quality criteria. Due to the heavy rainfall over the past few days, salt production in Hambantota and Parantan came to a halt. As a result of lack of preparation, the cabinet granted approval for salt imports. These shipments are expected to arrive in Sri Lanka by next Monday or Wednesday. Until domestic production is sufficient to meet demand, permission has been granted to import salt and release it to the market. And now here's a look at some thoughts shared in the political arena today. The prices of essential goods have skyrocketed. The incumbent government does not have any solution to the issues and concerns grappling the general public. Electricity tariffs will also be increased in due course, potentially by 25% to 30%. The government attributes this to obligations under IMF conditions, claiming that such measures are unavoidable. However, this administration did not negotiate directly with the IMF. Instead, it adopted the agreements made by the previous government. This compliance has exerted an unnecessary pressure on the lives of the general public. However, this incompetent government has no solution to these issues.
Meanwhile, several other public representatives commented on the proposed electricity hike. අපි ගෙදර ඇරියේ පට්ටපල් බොරු ටිකක් අහලා.
Governments in the past were voted out for failing to deliver on their promises, and this one is no different. The government vowed to bring down the electricity tariffs to less than 1/3. They pledged to reduce the electricity bill from 3,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees, claiming it would be top priority once they took office. However, what has happened at the moment? They reduced the tariffs by 20%, but now they intend to increase it. These are not what they promised prior to the elections.
කියපු ඒවාද කරන්නේ? නෑ.
රුපියල් කෝටි 14,300ක් විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයට ශුද්ධ ලාභ හොයන්න.
Last year, the CEB posted profits of around 143 billion rupees generated through public contributions via electricity tariffs. Given such financial gains, there is no valid reason to raise tariffs. The 17 billion rupee loss recorded in the first quarter of this year is largely due to reduced rainfall, which led to increased use of coal power generation, a common seasonal trend. Currently, almost every major decision is being made in alignment with the IMF directives.
දැන් IMF එකට ඕන විදියට තමයි මේව ඔක්කොම පාලනය වෙන්නේ.
මේකේ වගකීම දෙන්න බෑ IMF එකට.
The IMF has not explicitly called for an increase in electricity tariffs. Its recommendation was merely to implement a cost recovery pricing structure. Yet the government seems to be misusing this guidance to justify its actions. If the government cannot control energy costs, keep its election promises, or improve administration efficiency, it should consider resigning. As a party, the SJB will report this issue to the PUCSL and is prepared to take legal action through the Supreme Court if necessary.
පුරවැසි අයිතිය වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී සිටින්න සමගි ජන බලවේගය අපි කටයුතු කරනවා.
And with that, here's a look at some local news across the island in brief. 4 teams from the Colombo Crimes Division and the Narahenpita Police are examining CCTV footage in relation to the shooting of the vehicle of former Executive Director of the National Lotteries Board, Tusita Halloluwa, along Dabare Mawatha, Narahenpita last night. 2 unidentified men on a motorcycle reportedly opened fire at the vehicle within which Tusita Halloluwa and his attorney were present at the time. The police revealed that the assailants had physically attacked Halloluwa and stolen a file belonging to him and fled the scene following the shooting. Halloluwa and his attorney have been admitted to the Colombo National Hospital with minor injuries. Investigations into the incident were handed over to the Colombo Crimes Division pursuant to instructions issued by the Acting Inspector General of Police, Priyantha Veerasurya. Meanwhile, 2 individuals on a motorcycle opened fire at a person at around 4 p.m. today in front of the Blue Mandal Sirisanda Sevana apartment complex. The 38-year-old victim of the shooting was admitted to the Colombo National Hospital. The police found the motorcycle and helmet abandoned by the shooters, who fled the scene after the shooting in the Grand Pass area. In other local news, the Kotahena police arrested 2 suspects in connection with the shooting incident of a man and a woman along the Sumitra Mawatha area of Kotahena on the 16th of May. These suspects, aged 17 and 18, who are residents of Colombo 13, were arrested after they surrendered to the Kotahena police through their attorneys. The 17-year-old had carried out the shooting without any compensation for the desire to join an underworld gang. According to reports, the shooting was allegedly carried out under the orders of a criminal by the name of Palani Shiran, who is suspected to be employing minors on Jampeta Street to commit various crimes. The 2 suspects were produced before the Hulstroff Magistrates Court this afternoon, where the Kotahena police was ordered to detain and question the suspects until May 20th. A short break now, and we will be back on the other side with more of the latest. Welcome back. You're once again joining First at 9 on Other Derana 24. Now, Deputy Minister of Tourism Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe revealed plans to attract more tourists during the upcoming off-season in a bid to reach Sri Lanka's target of attracting 3 million tourists to the island this year. Speaking to media yesterday, the Deputy Minister raised concern over the drop in Chinese tourist arrivals during the recent past, but added that targeted advertising campaigns have been initiated to draw more visitors from China.
As at May 13 this year, Sri Lanka recorded 956,000 tourist arrivals. The off-season is expected to begin after this month. We anticipate an average of at least 200,000 tourist arrivals per month during this period. We have an ambitious target of welcoming 3 million tourists this year. However, realistically, we expect to reach around 2.5 million visitors by the end of the year. Tourism promotional campaigns are being actively conducted to attract visitors tourists during the upcoming off-season. India remains the top tourist source market for Sri Lanka at the moment. On the other hand, I'm concerned about the drop in the numbers of Chinese tourists. China was a major source market for Sri Lanka back in 2018. Unfortunately, we haven't seen much growth in Chinese arrivals since then, and this remains a major concern. To address this, we are continuing targeted advertising efforts to draw more visitors from China. In recent years, tourists have mainly accessed Yala National Park through a single entrance. We have now introduced alternative entry routes, including access from Buduruagala and other nearby areas. During a recent visit to Mana, we identified the area's potential to be developed into a key tourist attraction. Mana is home to some of the richest coral reef ecosystems in the country. Additionally, we also have the famous Vilpattu National Park as well as the Knuckles Mountain Range. This mountain range is a popular ecotourism destination for tourists. We are actively working to strengthen tourism promotion in all these areas. Not only that, but the Peacock Trail and the Maduru Oya National Park also provide unique experiences for tourists. Tourism development and promotional campaigns are currently operational in these areas. We are raising awareness as much as possible in this regard. We will definitely take legal action against those who are involved in such acts. In the past, there were cases of tourists being sexually assaulted while some were shot dead. However, the true perpetrators were often shielded from justice due to political patronage. However, this government is firmly committed to bringing these responsible to justice through proper legal channels.
In international economic developments, China today announced anti-dumping duties as high as 74.9% on imports of POM copolymers from the United States, the European Union, Japan and Taiwan. POM or polyoxymethylene is a type of engineering thermoplastic which has various applications including in auto parts, electronics and medical equipment. China imposed the duties on POM imports after the Commerce Ministry concluded a probe launched in May last year, shortly after the US sharply increased tariffs on Chinese imports. In January, the ministry said initial investigations had determined that dumping was taking place and implemented preliminary anti-dumping measures in the form of a deposit starting from January 24th. Under the new anti-dumping duties, the highest rates of 74.9% have been levied on US imports, while European shipments will face 34.5% duties. 35.5% duties have been imposed on Japanese imports, except for Asahi Kasei, which received a company-specific rate of 24.5%. General duties of 32.6% have been placed on imports from Taiwan, while Formosa Plastics received a 4% tariff and Polyplastics Taiwan 3.8%. And that's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.